Hello and welcome back. I'm Joseph Hoffman, and today we're going to be learning how to compose your own original piece in binary form. A piece is in binary form when you have an A section that repeats, then a contrasting or different B section that also repeats. Deb Kohora is a good example of a piece in binary form. It has an A section that repeats, then it has a contrasting B section that also repeats. So we could say the form of Deb Kohora is AABB, which is binary form. Or that could also be written like this, with repeat signs. Today, I'll walk you through how to compose your own binary form piece. So let's come to the piano to get started. Here's a composition worksheet which you can download from our website as part of the materials for this unit. And I'll go through these steps which are listed out on this worksheet as if I'm making the composition. But then after the lesson is done, you'll just go through and do those same steps on your own to make your composition. So for step 1, it says, choose a feeling or mood that you want your song to express. For example, playful, mysterious, exciting, or sad. Well, today, I think I'll choose sad and beautiful. So I don't want just something that is any kind of sad. I want something sad and lovely or beautiful. So that's the mood that I choose. Again, when you do your song, you can choose any mood or feeling that you want. Then step 2 is choose which pentascale to play your song in. Well, since I want to do something sad, I think I'll choose a minor key. And recently we've learned A minor, so that will be what I choose for my pentascale. Again, you can choose any pentascale you want for your song. Okay, step 3, decide which hand will play the melody, then draw a treble or bass clef on the staves below. Well, let's see. I think I'll give my left hand a chance to play the melody today, which means I'm going to draw a couple of bass clefs. So the clef goes at the start of the staff, and I'm going to draw a bass clef there, and for my B section as well. Good. Now we're ready for step 4. Compose an A section for your song on the first staff. Okay, now we get to the real heart of the matter. How are we going to compose an A section? Well, there's so many ways to compose a song. Some composers like to start with the rhythm and figure out the rhythm first. Some like to figure out the melody first. Some like to just mess around on the piano and improvise until you find something that you like and then write that down. I think I'll go with the last one today. Let's come to the piano and we'll try and come up with a melody that we like and then we'll write it down. Okay, so I'm just going to place my left hand here in this A minor pentascale. Here's my middle C, but I'm down here in the bass clef area since the left hand's going to play my melody. And now, when you compose, I like to really think about the mood or the feeling we're trying to create, which in the case of my composition, I chose sad and beautiful. So I'm just going to kind of mess around and experiment until I find something that feels like it captures that feeling. No. Oh, I like that. So I'm going to keep that. No, let's try. Yeah, I liked that. So I'm going to keep that. That seems to capture what I want to say in this piece. And then I want something else. Yeah, I like that. And then that will repeat. So, fa, mi, I mean, me, do, re, me, re, do. So it starts on an E, repeat, step down, then skip down. Bum, 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 bum. now that I'm happy with that, let's come to the staff and I'll write it down. So I'm going to write down the note heads of the melody that I just composed. Good, there are the note heads, but I need stems and beams to show the rhythm. And so let's figure out that rhythm. I did ba, 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 ba. And that is ti-ticky. So, and because I'm on or above the middle line, that means my stems are going to go down. So I add a stem to the left side of the note head to each of those notes. And then I draw one beam. That makes this one a T. Actually, it makes them all T's, but these need to be ticky, so I need to add a second beam there. So now I have T, ticky, and then ba, ba. Those were both tas. And because they're below this middle line of the staff, the stem should go up. So I'm going to add a stem to the right side of the note head. When stems go up, it goes on the right side. And so now I have ba, 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 ba. And now ba, 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 ba. You probably notice that's the same rhythm. So I need another T, ticky. So I'll do a beam to connect all of those, and then an extra beam to make that T, ticky. Now I have T, ticky, and then ta, ta. That's my A section. Now let's come back to the piano to figure out the B section. Now we want the B section to be different from the A section. And in my A section, the notes were mostly going down. Dee, da, da, da. Had this really falling feeling. So for contrast, I think in this section, I'd like the notes to more feel like they're lifting up, maybe be a little more hopeful. So maybe I'll start on this note this time and go up this time. Kind of turn that pattern upside down, but keep the rhythms the same. Bum, ba, ba, bum, bum. Then repeat that note. Then maybe do that again a step lower. Dum, da, da, da. Remember, in music, that's called a sequence, and that's a good tool. And by the way, when you compose, it's great to try and incorporate patterns. When you hear music, you'll notice so many patterns, and that helps our ears enjoy it more when we recognize a pattern. So you notice I have these notes going up, then repeat. Then I'm going to do that same pattern again, starting a step lower. That's called a sequence. It's a great tool for composers. And then I need some kind of ending. I'd like my song to end on do. I would say almost 100% of songs end on do because that gives you a feeling of closure. Do is that home base. So how will I get to do? Let's see. I have this, then da, 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 and then somehow I need to get down. But that sounds too boring, just stepping down. So let's try. Yeah, I like that. Like a tinky ta. Yeah, so now I have my B section. I have starting on C, C, up, repeat, then down to B, up, repeat, and then tinky ta. Yeah, now that I'm happy with it, let's write it down. So let's draw this in. Ah, I'm on the wrong space. Let's erase that. Okay, now I have my correctly drawn note heads, and we're ready to add stems. So this rhythm was ba 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 ba, ti tiki ta ta. Since we're starting below the middle line, I'll have my stems go up, add a beam, add a second beam, make them a little extra thick. And then now I'm above the middle line, so my stems will go down. So I have ti, tiki, ta, ta, and then ba, 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 ba. Same rhythm again, and since we're below the middle line, my stems will go up here, Add the beams and thicken them a little bit. Don't have to worry too much about thickness. Whoa, that stem got a little bit crazy. And then now I'm on the middle line, so customarily those should be stems down. So we have ti, tiki, ta, ta. Then here we have ba, 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 ba. So that's a team, ki, ta. Remember, team ki is the rhythm that we say for a dotted eighth with a 16th note. So I add a dot to that one, then an extra beam for this one. So that makes team, ki. Need to do the same thing for this one. Beam, extra beam, and a dot for the 8th note. Team, ki, ta. And now I've written my B section melody with rhythm. Now we're not done yet. Now I'm going on to step 6. Figure out if your song has a repeating pattern of strong beats. If it does, add bar lines and a time signature. Now it's totally possible to have music that doesn't have bar lines. In fact, back in the Renaissance, hundreds of years ago, they would do just that. They wrote music without meter or bar lines. But once they realized, oh, these songs have patterns of strong beats, that's when they started using bar lines. But it's okay to write in that old Renaissance style without bar lines if you choose. But let's look. I see kind of a pattern here. We have ba 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 bum 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 ba ba bum bum. Do you see that pattern of 3 beats? Here's beat 1. This T-ticky all takes up 1 beat. Beat 2, beat 3. And then we have that T-ticky again, which is kind of the strong part of the phrase. So I'm going to add a bar line here. And at the start of a song, if we start on beat 1, we traditionally don't add a bar line there. We just show the time signature, which in the case of my composition is 3/4. I've got groups of 3 beats for each phrase, and then this repeat sign. Ti-tiki ta ta, that's one group of 3 beats, then ti-tiki ta ta, another group of 3 beats. And that continues. Ti-tiki ta ta, that was a group of 3. Ti-tiki ta ta, there's a group of 3. And then team ki ta, another group of 3. Now, most songs stay with one time signature, but let's say in this last measure, if I had made that a half note and now suddenly we have 4 beats, that's okay. You can insert a time signature right in the middle of your song. Just put it right after the bar line, but before the first note. So I'd have to really squeeze that in there if that was the case in my song. So if you want to change time signature, again, that's allowed if you want to, just mark it in your music. So whoever is playing your song will know what to expect. If the time signature doesn't ever change, you only need to write it once at the start of your song. You don't have to put it again on each line. Now let's say you were using a pentascale like A major, where you have some sharps. Then you'd want to add a sharp in front of the C for C sharp. So don't forget to also add sharps or flats where you might need them for your pentascale. Now the next step says choose which chords to use and add chord symbols. Well, let's come back to the piano to decide which chords might sound best with this melody. So my right hand's going to be playing chords, and the 3 most common chords in pretty much all of music are the 1 chord, which is just built on Do, Me, since we're in minor, and So. So there's my 1 chord, which is probably the chord I will start and end my song in. And then I've got my 5/7 chord, which has a G sharp, D, and E if we're in the key of A minor. It's also the 5/7 for A major, by the way. So these 2 chords are the most common. Then every once in a while we've got the possibility of a 4 chord, which has A, D, and F. So those will kind of be the 3 chords I'm choosing from for my song. Like I said, I already figured out, I pretty much know I want to start on a 1 chord, so let's try it. I think 1 sounds good all the way through measure 1. Oh, but the 1 chord doesn't sound very good with a B. The reason for that is the 1 chord is made up of Do, Me, and So, but if I'm playing that Re, you hear that chord doesn't quite sound so good. So let's try out the 5-7 chord. Ooh, that sounds a lot better. 5-7 sounds great with a re. So I'm going to go re. But when I get to that do, now the 5-7 doesn't sound so good. Do you hear that? So I need to change chords right in the middle of that measure. It's going to go bum, bum. And how about back to the 1 chord? Yeah, that sounds great. So listen to all of line 1, or my A section. 1 chord, 1 chord, 5-7, 5-7, back to 1. Yeah. Now let's figure out the chords for my B section. When we have bum ba da dum dum. Let's see if the 5-7 would sound good with that. Not quite. How about 1? Yeah, I like that. And then since I come down to re, I'm going to guess that a 5-7 will sound good. Yeah, and it does. And now for my ending, I'll use a 1 chord. So 1 chord, again, is, I'd say, 99% of the time or more, that's going to be the best chord to end on, to bring you that feeling of coming home. Good, let's write these chords down. So we'll write in those chord symbols. Since we're in minor, we use a lowercase I, Roman numeral 1, a little I, and then we'll use the 5-7 here. And then it goes back to a 1 chord on beat 3 of that measure, actually. So 1 measure of 1 chord, 5-7 for 2 beats, then 1. That repeats. Then down here, use the 1 chord again, and then go to the 5-7 chord here, and then back to the 1 chord for the final measure. So now we have our chords. Okay, now we're ready for a couple of optional steps. And let's check it out. Step 8 says, optional, add dynamics to show where to play loud or soft. Well, I'd love to do that, so let's do that step. Because I want this to be sad, which I decided from the beginning, I think a soft sound would be best. So I'm going to mark piano for the beginning. And I think that takes care of the entire A section. I want that to all be soft. And then for the B section, since the notes are going up here, I think it sounds a little bit more hopeful. So I'd like it a little bit louder, not a lot louder. So I'll do mezzo piano. And then I want it to crescendo as the notes step up. So I'm going to add a crescendo mark there. Dum, da, da, dum, bum. But then this one goes a little lower. So I'm going to have it go back to piano, but then still crescendo again as it goes up. Bum, ba, ba, bum, bum. Then these last few notes, I'd like it to decrescendo. So I'll mark that. Bum, ba, bum, ba, bum. And then I want it to end really, really soft on that last A. So I'm going to add a pianissimo for the ending. Now, step 9 says, optional, add staccato dots if you want any of the notes to be played staccato. Well, since I decided on a sad and beautiful mood, I think staccato wouldn't quite fit with that. So instead of staccato, I'm actually going to draw phrase marks. And you can do that too if you want any notes to be played legato. These notes form kind of a group or musical sentence, which we call a phrase. So I'm going to put a phrase mark over that and over this, over this. Basically, each one of these measures is like a little phrase that I want to be played legato. And that curve line shows that. All right, now we're ready for step 10. Play your composition and feel free to make any changes to make it sound exactly how you want it to. So I'm going to play my entire composition and make sure it's what we want. So let's play through the whole composition with dynamics, with phrasing, with chords, and see how we like it all put together. I'm happy with that, so we're going to keep it. Now, when you're composing, feel free to try some things out and experiment. If you don't like it, change it. There's going to be lots of back and forth. I kind of went through my steps quickly, but feel free to take your time and really work on your piece until you're totally happy with it. Haha, just when you thought you were done, there are more steps on this second page, which again, you can download from our website. In step 11, it says, with your best handwriting, copy your final composition on the staves below. So, assuming you made some mistakes like I did, and you may have to make some erasings or changing of notes as you try it out and you decide what you like, it may look a little bit sloppy in your first draft. So here's a chance to make it look really professional. Use your best handwriting, take your time to make the note heads look really good, make the stems really straight. I mean, some composers even use a ruler to make the stems and beams really straight and professional looking. Then you're going to choose a title for your composition. And then last of all, share your composition by playing it for a friend or family member. Title, also don't forget to put your name here. And for the title of my composition, I'm going to let you make suggestions by leaving a comment below this lesson. I'd be curious to know what you suggest because I couldn't think of a good title that I liked. And so tell me what you come up with. And then last of all, one more optional step is in the space below, draw an illustration that represents your composition. You've noticed on some of my pieces, if you get the materials, that you'll see sometimes little illustrations or pictures. So now it's your turn to make an illustration that matches the mood or feeling or the story that your piece is trying to tell. Now it's your turn to make your own binary form composition. Don't worry if yours doesn't sound the same as mine. In fact, it shouldn't sound the same. I hope it sounds completely and totally different and uniquely yours. Just follow the same steps you just watched me do and make your own musical creation. Remember, the only criteria is that you like it. So feel free to make changes and edits until you are happy with it. Once you have it composed, practice performing your composition and then share it with someone. I would love to hear your composition too. To do that, you can share it with me on Facebook or Instagram. As always, thanks for watching and happy composing. Go ahead, say it.
It's now time for poetry time with Sharky. Oh.
Remember to practice each day with counting out loud as you play. Then your skills, how they'll grow, and your talents will show. So great job, as Mr. Hoffman would say. And your teeth, never forget to brush, even when you're in a rush. You'll want them to shine like all 500 of mine. So with strong teeth, your food you can crush.